Thank you for joining us today for the Ontario Realtor Wellness Program Ask Me Anything Virtual Town Hall. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in today's session and learn more about the program. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tania Artenosi, OREA's 2023 President. Joining me today to answer your questions are Ontario Realtor Wellness Task Force co-chairs Stacey, Evoy, and Kevin Crigger. Today's discussion for us is fellow realtor and host of Brokers Playbook podcast, Simeon Papailias. Known as the ORWP, this new benefit program for Ontario realtors will offer life insurance, critical illness insurance, out-of-country emergency medical travel insurance, accidental death and dismemberment insurance, and member and family assistance program, and much, much more. Today's virtual town hall is a chance to learn more about what the ORWP will mean for you. These Ask Me Anything Q&A sessions are designed to give you, our members, the opportunity to ask us your questions directly and in an interactive, open dialogue. To accommodate all schedules and regions, we are also offering an in-person town hall on October 11th in the GTA. To set the stage, the ORWP was approved through OREA's Assembly on June 20th, 2023. It will come into effect January 1, 2024 for OREA's 96 members and 34 real estate boards, with annual dues increasing to provide broad coverage at a very affordable price. Creating a benefits and insurance program is something we've talked about for years. The ORWP came about after countless hours of hard work by dedicated realtor volunteers from across Ontario, people with diverse perspectives and personal circumstances. Suffice to say, there's been a lot of talk about it online and with our realtor community. Unfortunately, there's also been a lot of false information circulating about the program. The goal of this town hall is to fix that, to answer your lingering questions and address your concerns. Without further ado, I'll pass things over to our moderator for today, Simeon.
Thank you, everyone, and nice to see you. Tanya, that was a great introduction. I appreciate it. And I want to get going with some of the major housekeeping rules to get this into a productive and efficient meeting, starting with the way we're signed in. We need to have both our first and last names on the screen. We're going to allow one question only for anybody who has a question, with no follow-ups until everyone in line has had a chance to speak. We're not going to be repeating the same questions, so please pay attention to the questions prior to yours to ensure we're making the most out of the town hall. No sharing of screens or use of background images. We want to ensure we have a productive conversation today, so any kind of unprofessional behavior will not be tolerated. Here's the way you can ask a question. To enter the queue to ask a question, simply raise your hand using the button on the Zoom controls. I'll call you on in the order that you put your hands up. When called upon, Zoom will briefly remove you and rejoin you into the meeting. This is an automated process and should take less than 3 seconds. Once back, please unmute yourself and turn on your camera when prompted. Before asking your question, please state your full name and your board. We do respect all opinions, but this is not an opportunity to drive a political agenda or grandstanding by anyone. This is the time to ask genuine questions, and with that in mind, please keep your questions to 30 seconds or less. I want to thank you all in advance for paying attention to the housekeeping rules and adhering to them. My agenda personally for today is to cement my feet on the fence, because this town hall is meant to be a forum to get your questions answered, as well as voice your opinion in a professional way. Please think of your question and the purpose that it serves. Let's keep it respectful, let's keep it professional. And with that said, Kevin, the first question I have is for you. what is the overarching goal of the Ontario Realtor Wellness Program, and why did it have to be mandatory across all the members of OREA?
So let me start by saying that the task force started with no preconceived notions. The goal of the task force effectively was to find a program that represented value for the membership. And in doing so and engaging with actuaries, insurance consultants, lawyers, and accountants, we recognized that one of the key elements in calculating the cost of a program effectively is calculating risk. So the reason for mandatory is effectively to have a program that represents financial value, but also represents value to those with things like pre-existing conditions who don't have the ability in the broader market to seek programs. Having a defined class, which in this case is the membership of OREA, allows the insurer to calculate the risk profile based on age and gender and their distribution throughout the membership, and ultimately bring forward a proposal that certainly represents a commercial opportunity in terms of being very cost effective in relation to what's available on the street, but also a program that encompasses all of OREA's members. So when you look at things like life insurance and you look at other elements of the program, there isn't the sort of exclusion for those who have substantial pre-existing conditions or have major health concerns. And really the value perspective, but also the inclusivity were two key elements in developing the program. And in order to address both of those issues or concerns, we needed a defined class, which is where the mandatory nature of the program developed.
Got it. Stacey, is there something you would like to add to that? Because that's one of the biggest questions from the membership. And I've had this question asked 100 times in the last few months on our podcast. Do you have something to add to the mandatory nature of the program?
Simeon, I don't really. That was a really well-rounded question, and Kevin covered all of the elements about why is it mandatory.
Sure, thank you so much. And of course, if the audience has further questions to that, we will get to them. The second most asked question and a big criticism is that most people, I shouldn't say most people, most of the people who have benefits through their partners are part of the mandatory nature of this program. And if they don't need it, what is the response to that? So for example, me personally, I have some benefits from my partner. Why do I need to participate?
Simeon, great question. We've been asked this question a lot. And the simple answer is it's going to form part of your OREA dues. So can you opt out? No. However, you will be able to do a coordination of benefits with your spousal plan that will allow you to use your plan and their plan to top up on either side.
So one would supplement the other.
Right. So say theirs is covered to 80%, you would be able to, do that 20% on the other side. And we've answered that in our FAQ section. We have a whole coordination of benefits and how does it work, who's the first, second, and third payer. The other side of that is with spousal benefits, Simeon, a lot of times you don't have the coverage for life insurance and critical illness, which are two key components of this offering.
Got it. And just because I personally don't know the mechanics of how that would operate, there would be a dedicated person that helps you coordinate the supplementation and all those types of activity?
Oh, absolutely. So first, through OREA, we have a coordinator of benefits that would help you on the OREA side. And then each of the insurers also have call-in centers and specialists that would help you with this, but we have it all clearly laid out. If you go on OREA.com/ORWP, coordination of benefits, you can see there how under each scenario it would work.
Well, thank you so much. That's the questions I have for that. And again, reminding the audience, these are the top questions. So if you have further questions or you want to dig deeper, you will have an opportunity to do so for sure. The third most asked question, and I think this is a big one because it affects our legends of real estate, all our colleagues that are 60, 65 plus. There's a notion out there that this program, the Ontario Realtor Wellness Program, our older, more senior members are going to be paying the full premium, but accessing less than other members. How did you get through that when putting the program together? Some people are even calling it age discrimination. Is it age discrimination? How is this fair? How can we address those concerns to our senior membership?
So it certainly is an age discrimination. One of the realities of insurance is insurance gets more costly as we age. Beyond that, there are certain products that aren't available at certain age bands. So when you look at critical illness, for example, typically a critical illness policy terminates at age 65. We were actually able to push the benefits out to age 70. And when you look at things like life insurance, for example, typically term life insurance is good for the term. And basically at the end of the term effectively terminates. And at certain ages, you can't even purchase life insurance because the risk versus the premium is so substantial, it doesn't make sense. When you look at how the program's been structured, it certainly reflects the broad base of membership that we represent as OREA. And in looking at the various coverages, certain elements are not commercially available in the marketplace, such as critical illness beyond age 70 in our case. The cost of life insurance substantially increases as we age. The major difference in this plan is as long as you are a realtor, you're covered. So for the life insurance perspective, there's been a lot of discussion around challenges with term insurance. This effectively doesn't function as a term policy because there's no maximum age limit. So if you trade in real estate until your 90s and ultimately pass away, you're covered. And really the program's reflective of
those
that.
life insurance privileges do not go away at 70?
They do not. So
Got it.
there's a lot of misinformation as well around what the coverages are. So effectively, life insurance starts at $100,000 and tiers to $50,000 at age 65. It effectively stays at $50,000 as long as you're a member. One element of the program that tiers down as well is critical illness. So it's $25,000 of coverage, which tiers down to $12,500 at age 65. That product does terminate at age 70 because there wasn't an opportunity to extend it beyond that. But we did ultimately achieve a 5-year longer period than is typically available in the commercial market based on the overall group and class of membership.
That's great news. And for anybody who wants to dive into the actual letter of the policy, is that readily available on the website you mentioned earlier?
It
Where somebody
is.
can go look at the exact specifics of how that would be applied to them?
All of the specific details of the program are available on the website. One of the things that's also there is an explanation of costs for various elements of the benefits at different age bands. And I think in looking at that, you certainly can see the value perspective for those who are age 65 and over.
Got it. Well, thank you for answering them both, Stacey and Kevin. I'm ready to go straight to our audience, to the Ask Me Anything. That's what this is truly for. We just kind of wanted to set the stage with the most asked questions. So without further ado, I would like to go to Wayne He. Wayne? I'll move on to the next member of the audience, Maria Morello. Maria Morello, if you want to unmute once you are set up inside as a panelist. As we wait for Maria, excuse me, I'm going to just ask some of the questions that I prepared from my curiosity. How are member boards, particularly
Can you
the
hear me
smaller
okay?
ones? Oh, is this Maria?
Yes, it is.
Maria, I will take your question. I'll defer back to my own question in a few seconds. Maria, yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. What is your question?
Okay, I mean, I have dozens of questions, and obviously we're only allowed to have one. And this whole process has been about stifling our speech. So I would like to know, how exactly did you guys come about with the vote on this? Because every single person that I have spoken to is against the program. And I've talked to, and I've had signed even a petition with thousands of names. I think it was 15,000 when I signed off. So I would like to know how you voted with this upper echelon of board or directors or whoever they are, that you came up with this mandatory plan.
Is
So
this a
I'd love
question-
to know.
Is this, Maria, a question directed to someone specifically? Can I ask it to Kevin or Stacey or either?
Well, whoever has the capability of answering it would be good.
Sure. Were you able to hear the question clearly?
Yes.
So the question is surrounding the vote of how this came about, and notions that there may have been an upper echelon or otherwise. Can you speak to that and try to give as much precise answers to the question for Maria, please?
So I can start by saying that I don't sit on the OREA board. So from that end, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around the governance structure. So when you look at the governance of organized real estate, the boards and associations are the voting delegates of both OREA and of CREA. So I can also address your commentary around sort of stifling of discussion and conversation. I personally have attended a number of town halls. I've spoken at them. We've addressed questions. We've provided answers. The answers may not be the answers that you ultimately want to hear, but they are answers nonetheless. So in terms of how this vote was affected, it was affected based on the governance of OREA. It's an assembly vote.
I knew it.
Delegates
I
are
knew
board
it.
representatives. What did
I
you
knew
know?
it. It's a farce. It's an absolute farce.
So what I
Just
want
what
to
I
do is-
expected, exactly what I expected. So you guys can cut me off, do whatever you like, but I'm
No.
extremely
So-
disgusted and disappointed. And I
So
don't even know
Maria, what I
what
would like to do when I agree to moderate this is I want the membership to actually get an answer. If you are looking, if you don't feel Kevin's answer has served as something that answers your question, by all means, there can be follow-up. Which point do you see a farce or you're not satisfied with?
So sorry. So if we're not satisfied, so basically we're just going to be hearing regurgitation of stuff and really no concrete answers, because that really wasn't.
Well, the concrete
That answer was not really, that is so far vague. It's unbelievable. But so you're saying that there's going to be some kind of follow-up to all of this? Well, I
What
don't
I'm asking
believe
is,
that.
what exactly is the maybe did I not translate the question appropriately? So the reason we're here and taking this question, whether you feel hot about it or not, I want to make sure that your question is answered.
Okay,
your
who
question
actually
precisely-
voted? So who voted? I'd like to know who
So
vote, not people, not the names of the individuals. I'd like to know who the people, the group of people that voted are. And I do not want that gentleman to go again in another roundabout telling us all the things and places he's attended. That's just a waste of time. Just tell us
I'm not
who
going
voted.
into roundabouts. So basically, the voting members of OREA who vote at the assembly are representatives of each member board. The board of directors of each of the 34 boards and associations appoint voting delegates. Those are the people who voted on the plan.
So I think that is a very direct answer, Maria. Maria, does that answer your question? Got it. Maria is no longer on screen. And again, this is a live format. I'm going to move to Ms. Andrea Wright. Andrea, if you want to come on stage to ask your question. What I will do is I'm going to ask something that kind of goes off the person's here. Andrea, you're here? You want to unmute?
I'm here.
Miss Andrea, I can hear you now. Thank you for putting your hand up and participating in this town hall. What is your question regarding the program?
Well, let me start with this.
Sure.
I'm absolutely 100% against this mandatory health insurance for many, many reasons. And our local board voted no due to, number one, the lack of information. So my question is to whoever one of you won't go in a roundabout way, is as our association that's supposed to represent 96,000 realtors, do you think you're putting yourselves and us as members in a safe legal position to force this upon the members of our local boards who voted it down due to lack of information, transparency, and a rush to push such a personal family matter as health insurance through?
So may you please just repeat? I understand the context of your question.
Yeah, you're putting us all in a very precarious position as far as lawsuits coming down the pipe.
So I think the question, sorry, go ahead.
So I'd like to know what your position is about that.
So
Do you have
positioning
enough money
surrounding legal
to,
position of
or
lawsuits.
will our dues go up because now we're in lawsuits?
Do you want to maybe make it a little bit clearer surrounding what a lawsuit would look like? What kind of lawsuit you're referring to?
There's many people very unhappy with this, as you probably well know.
For sure.
Yes. So what happens if you're faced with a lawsuit?
Okay, so if OREA is faced with a lawsuit surrounding the implementation of this program, what is your position on that, Stacey?
Thanks, Simeon. Thank you for the question. So it was a full and transparent process, and we have heard many times that there was lacking information prior to the vote happening. All 34 member boards received the exact same information at the exact same time, and OREA provided any additional information that was requested at that time on behalf of the member boards and the voting delegates. No stone was left unturned prior to the June 20th vote. In fact, in addition to a town hall that was attended by all 34 member boards, we also went on to conduct 16 additional town halls right up till the 24th hour of the vote for any boards or association that lacked any clarity for their members to speak out, and so that we could hear all issues going into the June 20th vote.
Thank you for the answer, Stacey. I appreciate it. I do believe one of my own questions is relevant to what Andrew just asked. And my question is, given these complaints and the amount of people that feel not heard or they weren't part of the process and criticize it, why do you not just take a step back and delay the implementation, put it to a full membership vote? Why so we're taking the mandatory approach, and there is members of our community saying, stop it, please don't do this. Why? What is your stance on that? Because I think it really suits the question. This was my actual question. So
Simeon, I'll answer that.
Sure.
So we don't have that ability to delay. It was decided on by the assembly that the January 1st would be the implementation date. And Simeon, I would ask it to you in another way. What about the member right now who has stage 4 cancer and is just trying to hold on until after the January 1st date? Some members have been coming to us and saying, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? You know, I would have needed this over my career. And literally, this has been a conversation since 2019. OREA, the board of directors, does not have the ability to just arbitrarily decide something that the membership voted on with our process that we currently have in place, which is the assembly model. And it passed with almost an 80% majority.
Got it. That answers my question. If I do have a follow-up, I'll definitely ask it. I want to take a question from our members. Ms. Susan Eckersley, if you may want to come up and turn video on. And thank you, Andrea, for asking your question. I hope we gave some clarity and furthered it with my supplementation as well. Susan?
Oh, gosh. There are many questions here, and there's been such a backlash from so many agents here saying we don't want it mandatory, just stop this thing. It's really, really frustrating that you can go on and say, well, it's already been voted on, we can't stop it. Surely there has to be some access that agents can have to opt in. As a senior, this is useless to me, absolutely useless to me. And why can it not be stopped?
Susan, what board are you from?
Toronto Real Estate Board.
From the Toronto Real Estate Board. And as a senior, you find this benefit program useless. And your question is, why can't it be stopped? Do you want to maybe elaborate maybe on why you don't find value in it? Maybe that resonates with a lot of our members.
Well, as a senior, a lot of the stuff is already fallen off the track for me. So I don't get the benefits.
Got it. Sorry, go ahead.
And if I'm getting less benefits, then I should be paying less.
I see. So that was one of the top 3 questions. And I'm not sure if the panel can touch on it maybe one more time as far as the benefit to the senior. But I think the ultimate question here, again, Susan, is the fact that it's mandatory and you don't like the mandatory component of it. Is that correct?
Everybody probably on this panel is not liking mandatory. Yes.
Yes. So just addressing both the senior value and the fact, the mandatory nature of it.
So certainly the mandatory nature of it, you know, mandatory is a word having come out of the last 3 years that certainly doesn't incite comfort for anyone. And certainly we understand the concern around that. We've also explained the necessity of a qualified class or a defined class, which is what creates the mandatory component of the program. So there's a lot of people who basically say, you know, we like the program, we feel that realtors should have access to a program, but we don't want it to be mandatory. It's sort of the conversation of the chicken or the egg. At the end of the day, you can't have an opt-in program that represents the same value proposition. You can't have an opt-in program that includes those with pre-existing conditions, because you don't have a program where risk is defined. And more importantly than that, the risk profile would be substantially more risky from the insurer's perspective, which is exactly why they exclude pre-existing conditions in general plans available publicly. In terms of the process for the vote, it was an assembly vote. That is the model at both OREA and at CREA. In terms of the way that the vote ultimately was handled, there's certainly been a lot of discussion around the idea of one member, one vote. That's never been the model at OREA. It's not the model at CREA either. And it's the voting delegates from each board and association that ultimately voted in favor of this program.
Thank you for answering that question, Kevin. I appreciate it. And I'm going to move to the following question to try to get as many as possible. Abaro Akpomena. Abaro, if you want to come on up and unmute.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Abaro. I can hear you perfectly.
Hi, so my name is Abaro Akpomena. I'm from the Oakville Milton Board. So
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So yes, so I understand, like you explained, the intention is to help us be nice, do what we need and all of that. But thank you for that. But however, we're already paying too much. Now, our colleagues in the US who don't pay anything close to what we are paying as realtors in Canada, and who actually would have needed something like this, do not have anything like this. So what I'm saying is, well, luckily Canada has some very good things compared to the US in terms of medical care. So I'm thinking enforcing this thing on us is not the best way to go, especially if this much of realtors are coming to say, we don't need it. We're already paying too much in terms of fees and other things. And we're grappling with that. Right now, I'm sure you know what the market is for a lot of realtors, trying to just get by and see the next market. And adding extra cost to it, I don't think it's the best thing. And everybody's wondering how is this really transparent? So, because if you keep saying, no, we're doing what is good for you, we're not kids, we're adults, right? We understand the intention is good. But if we say, okay, give us the room to opt out, or you want to, altogether just drop this thing so that we can continue to do it, whatever we've been using before, that will be okay. Because it's beginning to look like there's benefit for you guys, or for whoever is putting this together. I mean, that might not be the case. I'm not saying so, but when you keep insisting, I have to do it for you because it's good for you. When we are not kids, we're not toddlers, then people feel that way. I want to agree your intentions.
So I do have to limit, because I do understand the essence of your context, and I appreciate it, because a lot of members feel that exact same way. But what I'm going to ask the panel on your behalf is, again, comparing our organization to anyone in the US, where they pay less and they don't have the healthcare system, for example, Canada has. And I hope I am getting our brother on the Oakville board's question right, is did you look at other boards to compare how that stacks against us? And as far as the voting is concerned, I think we've really established that 80% of the way governance works at OREA, that none of you here have anything to do with, is how the vote passed. And that's a governance thing. So I really want to kind of stay away from that at this point. I think clearly the vote is governance. If anybody has an issue with governance, I think that should be a different topic. Sticking back to his question on looking and comparing ourselves to other similar size boards, et cetera, they don't have anything like it. Did you look at the US as a consult, or to see what they offer? Anything of that nature?
So we certainly looked at all of the board and association programs in Ontario. So there are 9 boards and associations that already have some form of mandatory program. So most of them related to life insurance, some to critical illness as well, but certainly looked at all of the existing plans just within the Ontario Real Estate Board landscape. In addition to that, we looked at other associations across the country and looked at what programs were available to their membership. We also looked at other industries and looked at the programs that they offer or programs that they've explored. In terms of the cost of membership, certainly, the comparison between sort of the US and Canada isn't wholly accurate, because the system's also quite a bit different. But when you look at overall cost, we don't sort of look at the province of Ontario and then compare what people are paying in the province of Alberta, because it's not a business. It's ultimately a not-for-profit member association. So I can tell you, in looking at the actual plan, one of the conversations and one of the reasons that there's a standard plan is the standard plan is what gives you the class of membership. It gives you the group that then deals with the demographic related items. We didn't include things like vision and dental in the base plan to keep the costs low.
Got it.
So that's why for those who need additional benefits, they're able to access them because they are a participant in the standard plan. But the cost of $25,000 of prescription drug coverage, for example, is substantial. And for someone who doesn't necessarily need that coverage, it wasn't fair to include that in the standard plan. So the standard plan, there's been a lot of criticism also around what it doesn't cover, but it doesn't cover certain elements by design. We effectively looked at what the minimum coverage required would be in order to create the class and allow for opt-in to higher tiers without medical, the ability to add family members without medical, and no exclusion on the pre-existing conditions. And that ultimately was the entry point that allowed for it. Certainly there's a respect and an understanding around keeping costs low. We're all realtors. So the goal certainly wasn't to create additional cost burdens at a very high level. And we felt as a task force that the minimum core standard of the program represented a value proposition for members. But for those who need additional coverages, there was a top-up option, which then sort of created greater opportunity within the program. One comment, though, that I do want to address,
Sure.
is it's one that I personally have found rather offensive. This discussion around us receiving some form of benefit.
Sorry, when you say us, meaning you personally or OREA?
That's certainly the commentary that's been out there.
Okay.
So to address the first and then the second, no member of the task force, no member of a board or association, no staff person of a board or association is receiving any form of compensation whatsoever as it relates to this program. The task force was made up entirely of realtor volunteers who effectively were looking at a program option to bring forward to the OREA Board of Directors, who would then, if they endorsed it, bring it forward to the OREA Assembly. And that's the process that unfolded. This has not created any sort of benefit for any individual involved in the process. And we're all paying the exact same fee as part of our OREA dues.
Got it. And I think good thing that you mentioned that, because I think it's important because I've been part, not of OREA task forces, but I've been a part of Toronto Real Estate Board's task forces. And they're around for a very long time trying to push the various agendas. I was on the women's task force. I was on the anniversary for TREB, for example, and they were started years before me pushing the agenda forward each year to implement change. So the fact that you're on the board when this is implemented, you feel is part of why some of this targeting is happening?
There's been a lot of discussion around the task force members. Then there's been discussion around various boards and associations. The reality is those involved in this program and the development of this program who've done the work effectively in bringing the program forward are realtors. And each of them sat there and asked the same questions that we're hearing today. These are not new questions. And these are all valid questions and valid concerns. But certainly as a realtor sitting at the task force, these are all considerations that were reviewed, but we also had to operate within the reality of the insurance space and bring forward a program that we felt as a task force represented value to membership.
Well, I do. So I was asked to participate as a moderator, and I made it very clear that I don't take one side or the other. But this very much sounds, when 80% of any membership votes, that's an overwhelming majority.
And just for clarity, it's 80% of member board delegates, because that's an important differentiation.
Fantastic, and anybody can speak to that. But 20% opposing is also a significant number.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I believe I'm seeing and living right now. Is 20%, when a board is 100,000 people and 20% or 20,000 people are affected at the very least, depending on the delegates, et cetera. That's a lot of people that have an opposing opinion. And that's where I believe this context is coming from. How do you take a look at in answering this consistent context that it's irrelevant to people and that we cannot, once this is now moved, we can move past it and we need to embrace it? What can we do if we just don't like it? How do we take advantage of the program, for example, where we create value out of it so we can move on if we so choose?
Well, and again, in designing the program, looking at things like paramedical coverage, there's no per visit maximum. And there are a number of elements of the program where we've taken away barriers, especially for those who have coverage and are looking to use this exclusively for coordinating benefits. The goal effectively was to take away a number of the barriers that typically would limit use of the program, so that those who are using elements of it but don't see the value in other areas are able to use those elements, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is Claudine Neer. Claudine, if you want to just state your full name and real estate board.
Hi there, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Claudine. Welcome.
My name's Claudine. I'm with the Sudbury Real Estate Board in Northern Ontario. And I think we've covered the fact that a lot of people are opposed to the mandatory aspect of the plan. I am as well, even though I would be one of the people who would benefit greatly from it. I'm opposed to the mandatory nature of it. It's not fair. I would just ask that the moderator not interpret my question for me. I want to ask it directly to Tania, if you don't mind.
I don't
OREA
mind at all.
strategic plan from 2021 to 2026, the mission statement reads, to support Ontario realtors in helping people find a great place to call home, work, and thrive. Additionally, the vision statement is that they will be helping Ontario realtors succeed in building stronger communities. There were 9 stated opportunities that OREA would pursue in the strategic plan, and not one of them was a mandatory health plan. With a yes or a no, do you really assert that foisting a mandatory health plan fits into your strategic plan?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. You know, real estate, as you can tell in our market, is forever changing, Claudine, and you know, things come up. So yes, I think that our mission and vision statement are still very true. And we've been presented with an opportunity to look at this and present it to the membership like we did in a wholesome presentation with an extreme amount of information. And yes, this is to help Ontario realtors work and thrive in their communities, and it's to help them better themselves and protect themselves. I think that, yes, I think that this does fit in. I believe in it. I believe in helping Ontario realtors. I've said that from the moment I've been a volunteer. Helping Ontario realtors is what we have to do. Helping each other is important as well. You know, we all work, but we have to also help each other. And this is something that does that. So yeah, I believe it's very well something that's a part of our plan, something that we can move forward, and something that benefits all Ontario realtors.
Thank you for your response, Tania. Appreciate it. I'm going to move on to the next question. Ms. Sheila McCluskey. Sheila, if you want to come on and unmute.
Hi, I'm Sheila McCluskey from the Ottawa Real Estate Board.
Welcome, Sheila.
Anyways, my question is, hang on a second.
Sure.
Now, may I ask why this is being tied with having supplementary health insurance is being tied to trading in real estate? And I don't understand why on earth this would happen for a professional association. My husband is a member of the Professional Association for Engineers in Ontario. It's not required. It's not required for any of my friends who are doctors or lawyers or accountants. None of them are required to have supplementary health insurance to trade in their business. This is not part of our business at all. So why are you tying it to trade? This makes no sense whatsoever.
Sure. Do you want me to direct the question directly to Kevin, Stacey, or either?
Either. If anybody can actually give me a real answer to why you're tying this to trading in real estate. And
Sure.
you know, in order for us to trade in real estate, we need the MLS, and it'll block us if we don't pay our dues. Now, me personally, I'm going to lose $11,000 a year in drug benefits. And please stop saying that a secondary program like for my spouse will pay for it. His does not. I read through his 90-page benefit package from his work. It will eliminate his benefit package if I use this as my primary. So please do not give more misinformation. There's been an awful lot of misinformation given by OREA on this program. So
I think
let's
it's a
deal with
perfect,
the
I think it's
fact
a
of
perfect
why
question.
will I be restricted in trading from real estate if I choose not to get this insurance?
To our panel, she has two big questions, one about her actual personal circumstances, and one, of course, why it's tied to the board and her MLS access.
So it's not a question of restriction of trade at all. As a member association, OREA has the ability to expand their benefit offering at any point in time. And that effectively is how OREA has developed their core services over time, as have other boards and associations at the local and national level. So through a process of effectively consultation, OREA can bring any proposal forward from a task force. From that task force, it then goes to the board of directors. The board of directors can ask questions, endorse the program, or choose not to. And then from there, it ultimately goes to the assembly of OREA, who is the deciding force in terms of what OREA can or can't do in terms of expansion of services, especially when there's an added cost, as in the case here, that required an increase in dues. So it's not a question of restriction of trade. It's a question of association benefits. And the association at any time has the ability to add benefits or change benefits of membership. That's really the discussion point. So as part of the ORWP proposal, it went through a typical governance process, and ultimately the member board delegates, who are your representatives at OREA, endorse the program, looking at it on its merits. In terms of the question around, or the commentary around, limitations to existing coverage, I can't speak to it obviously because I haven't seen your policy. The one thing I can say is there's a number of people who have expressed similar concerns to me and also to Stacey throughout a number of our conversations. And we actually have gotten copies of the policy. We've engaged with our broker. The goal is ensuring that no one ultimately has less coverage on January 1st than they did on the 31st of December. So I would encourage you to reach out so that we can also engage with our broker to see what potential limitations there may be within your policy, or what concerns may exist in terms of a reduction in coverage to ensure that that is not the case.
So the advice to anyone in the audience across our membership that feels they may lose or have less than what they had prior to is invited to do exactly what? Where can they direct their attention?
So basically, Stacey can provide the contact details for OREA, but effectively we would need a copy of their existing policy in order to have it reviewed by our broker and look at the options around coordination of benefits.
Great, thank you for answering that question. Ms. Kimberly Smither, if you want to come up and unmute.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you perfectly. Kimberly, welcome.
Okay, just coming. Hang on. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, first of all, that I understand that this can obviously be a contentious issue, but I also wanted to thank everybody for the effort that they put in. Insurance is extremely complicated, and when you're dealing with a number of people as we are, not everybody's going to be happy, but I wanted to raise my hand and just say that I'm extremely happy with the program. I'm happy that you're offering it, and while not everything applies to me, I think for the majority of people, you said 80%, that this will be an incredible benefit that we can access. So thank you for that. And thank you for the work that everyone's done over the past couple of years to make that possible. My question is that in the event that a realtor decides to park their license, do they have the option to pay their insurance dues and continue with the insurance while they are parked and then reinstate their dues later? Thank you.
Yeah, I never even thought of it. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Stacey?
Hi, Kimberly. Thank you for the question. Kimberly, I wouldn't be able to comment on that specifically, and only because there's so many models out there with regards to parking your license and what are the rules. But basically, if you're no longer paying OREA dues, then you would no longer be covered. However, we did just roll out last week retiree benefits. So when someone's switching and they're going to retire from the business, there will be retiree benefits available that they can transition to, even if their license is parked. And you would have a choice at that point to either choose a life offering, a life insurance offering upon retirement, and or a health benefits. So the idea is that when you're finished with the ORWP, we don't want you to be left with nothing. So you would have the choice of continuing with a life insurance policy or health benefits or both.
And just to cover a part of that question Kimberly asked, you said there's various parking models. If somebody wants to find out based on their business model, how does it work for them if they were to park their license? I know you said if you stop paying OREA, it's done. How can they find out directly how it impacts them depending on their circumstances?
If they're no longer a member of OREA, they're no longer covered. That being said, if they fall into the category that qualifies for retirement benefits, they've been a realtor for 25 years, they have the option to transition to the retiree plan. There are a number of boards and associations that have had a comparable retirement plan for those who've had life insurance. So the benefit includes not only a life insurance policy, but it also includes access to all of the sort of medical, dental, vision, and a whole range of other benefits on various tiers, similar to the ORWP.
I hope that answers specifically your question, Kimberly. And if not, please do reach out to the team for further clarity. Julia Warkentin, if you may want to tell us your board and of course, share your questions or concerns. Julia Warkentin.
Hi.
Hi, Julia. I can hear you now.
Actually, I'm not Julia. The program came on and said unmute and start recording.
No
My name
problem.
is-
If you would like to state your name and your board. Apologies.
Sure. My name is Laurel Price, and I'm with the Sudbury Board in Northern Ontario. And as you're well aware, there are many of us who are frustrated and upset by the mandatory aspect of this. And I think much of the frustration and anger comes from the fact that this came out of the blue at the last moment. My understanding is that the boards of directors, the board association directors received the information merely a day before the vote. Do you believe that that's honestly enough time for those board of directors, for the board associations to do their due diligence, understand what the implications are, and to reach out and ask for feedback from their members of their board in terms of how the members of the board would like them to vote? So we're hearing a lot of 80% approval, but the 80% approval, in my mind, is based on people not having necessary information to be able to direct their board of directors and not having enough information to make the decisions. And so, it's the whole mandatory aspect of this seems to have been under the radar until the last moment. And suddenly it's pulled out. And do you believe that the board of directors for these boards had enough time to digest this and to be able to do their due diligence and to be able to reach out to the members of the board in 24
Well, I do believe our
hours?
member is asking, she stated that there was a 1-day notice. And I mean, if she's asking me or anyone for that matter, if we gave somebody 1-day notice, is that enough time? The answer is absolutely not. Is that a fact that the board in her I believe you said she mentioned Sudbury. I'm not sure if she's still there.
That's right.
Is it, if you are there, if your board is Sudbury, were they given 1 day notice? Is that possible?
Simeon, I'll answer that.
Sure.
So there is a lot of misinformation out there. This would be one of those items. So we made the initial announcement about this in January. In March, we polled the 34 member boards. We were all together at the AGM, so we polled them there. In between March and the vote in June, there was 5 pages of communications between members and member boards. The 1 day that this member speaks of is completely inaccurate. An all-member town hall was held on May the 24th, which was a month in advance of the vote. That was after all the materials had already gone out to each and every member board. So no, there's a ton of misinformation out there. I've already stated previous that we conducted, in addition to that all-member town hall that all 34 boards participated in, we did an additional 16 town halls for individual member boards that requested them. I know in your local area, I answered questions of your board, your president, your executive officer leading up. And I can confidently say that that's a huge myth, but that people were given all the information well in advance with plenty of time to do their own due diligence and to ask any questions that they wanted to in advance of the vote.
Thank you for answering the question, and I hope that satisfies our member in Sudbury as far as the timeline of how this took place. Is there an outlet for any member if they were to say, like, I know it was 24 hours and you are wrong, or I am right, or whatever the case may be? Is there a process for them to be able to communicate with you directly, or can the president of the Sudbury board reach out in intermediate? However, how does that work if somebody has a real concern to say, no, this is misinformation? Because that's kind of what the context here.
Sure. Simeon, there's a lot of misinformation. I speak with that president regularly. What I can tell you is at the June 20th vote, there was 7 opportunities for member boards to stand up and voice any concerns they had with not just any issues raised by their members, but also with regards to the process. So there's no way that we've gotten to here, and that what is being communicated is the actual truth. So I just would say it's not possible. All members were given exactly the same info leading up.
I thank you again, Stacey, for answering the question. And I generally hope that puts some peace into your question. And of course, take further steps as you see fit to ensure that your voice is heard. I'm going to move to Farshid Godsian Zadeh. Farshid, if you want to state your full name and board.
Hi, how are you? It's Farshid Godsian. I'm with Toronto Real Estate Board, Realtor.
Welcome, Farshid.
Thank you. Lots of information. Mine is a little bit different. My question is, I'm looking at the secondary or top plans that are information that was out on that. Specifically, the $20,000 to $25,000 drug and drug benefit maximum. So I have, like in previous plans, I have a specialty medication. So where do I go about finding out? Because I'm still deciding whether to just stick to the standard or to move up. Where do I go? And I know there was a couple of emails that were sent if we need information. Is there a place or an email that we can use to ask those questions as far
That's
as,
a great question.
is this drug covered? Because it's specifically, it's not like a basic drug, it's a specialty medication. In previous coverages that I've had, they had classified it as a specialty medication. Which,
and I'm sure there's hundreds of our members in that position. What is the answer? Where does one look up if their medication specifically is covered by the program?
So we have Mike Trowell from Comprehensive Benefit Solution available on the call. So Mike, I'm wondering if it might be worth bringing you in to speak to that specifically.
Sure. So Rashid, we're going to get somebody from specifically that program to be able to answer that question for you.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a great question. So The insurance company for the drug program is Green Shield Canada, and they, through their drug plan, have about 23,500 different medications that are approved or eligible through the plan. There are no pre-existing conditions associated with the drug program. So there are, it's any medication that you're currently taking would be available through Green Shield. In situations like yours where you have specialty medications, obviously those cost a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns that continues. So what we would recommend is if you can email us at orwp@compben.com. And I believe that has already been communicated to membership last week. And let us know the name of the medication and the drug identification number, the DIN number. We'll be able to look into that with Green Shield and verify that it is indeed covered. And then you'd be able to make an informed decision about which option you want to choose.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. That was a great question that I believe will resonate with many. The next question comes from Joanne Lisiak. Joanne, if you want to just state your full name and your board. Okay, Joanne is not available. Wendy Hillier. Wendy Hillier, if you want to come to the stage.
Hello. My question is along the lines of the medication and obviously trying to figure out whether or not any existing plan that you're already on, plans like Trillium and plans from, again, specific medications that cost thousands and thousands of dollars that would not be affordable if I were to go off of that plan and go on this mandatory plan. So I obviously have major concerns about the cost to me. And if we decided we don't want to have the medical coverage at all, does that mean we have to forfeit our real estate license?
I'm not sure. That's a great question. Is the real estate license tied to this program?
So membership in OREA is, but I think the concern was as it relates to the Trillium program, if I heard the member correctly. And that's where, since we have Mike here as well, Mike, if you can speak to coordination of benefits specifically as it relates to the Trillium program.
Sure. So the excellent question. So the Trillium program is a drug program offered by the government of Ontario that is available to all Ontarians, regardless of age. And it provides coverage for approximately 5,000 different prescription medications. It is or has been a good program or a good resource for people that haven't traditionally had access to private drug insurance. And you can apply through Trillium for medications and be approved for what drugs they're covering. There is an annual deductible for Trillium associated with your level of income. So it's usually 4% of your annual income. So traditionally, the more you make in income, the higher your deductible is. But it is nice to have that available to you, knowing that you can get that catastrophic coverage if need be. With this new plan, it would technically take over as the first payer. So if you are accessing drug benefits right now through Trillium only, with the new program, the first, in the case of the standard plan, the first $750 of drugs annually would go to the ORWP. After that, you would then submit the claims through Trillium. So it would have a small impact on I guess the process involved, but at the end of the day, it's not going to jeopardize your participation in the Trillium program whatsoever.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And I also just need to make a quick correction. The email address you provided a second ago, Mike, I wanted that switched to program administrator at orwp.ca. Program administrator at orwp.ca. So I hope that that answers your questions surrounding the Ontario Trillium program. And we'll move on to the next question from Asha Singh. Asha, if you want to just introduce yourself and your board.
First of all, thank you very much, Tania, Stacey, and Kevin. I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you for spending all this time. My question is, and I think Stacey, you said that decision has been made. When you hear so many of the members, and we're hearing, as you know, I'm in part of organized real estate. I've known you, all of you, and I know what a great job you guys have done. When you're hearing so much of a feedback that people are really concerned, why not just pause it? And I know you can call an SGM, pause it, get member input. Where is the fire that we need to deal with this right then? You met in March, we're voting in June. And I know, Kevin, you being past president of Toronto Real Estate Board, president of the PropTech, and countless hours on this one, I know how busy you must have been. But my question is, hear your members. I know boards vote, we know all of that, how organized real estate work. But in this case, I don't think there's any harm in taking a step back, get more feedback from your members. Even if the cost is a little higher, give them the opportunity. That's the only thing we're hearing at our board level. And I know you guys on OREA, and I like you to just say, what's wrong with it? I know somebody can say, what about that somebody who's already got a medical condition and they're really looking forward to having it, but I get it. But you got thousands of members, those who are reaching out to you to saying, just hear us, do more consultation with members, not just with the boards, just with members. They are your members. Let's listen to them. There is absolutely no reason why OREA cannot just take a step back and saying, let's hear from our members and put together a plan that would really be beneficial to as many of the members it can be. But let's hear them. And if that's what happens, great.
I definitely appreciate the context. We have spoke to this context. Kevin, maybe if you want to just touch on it for Asha and anybody who came after we explained it initially when we started the call. Asha, thank you for your question and context. I'll pass the torch to Kevin to speak to it.
Well, I think Asha, as a past president yourself, someone who's been incredibly involved in organized real estate, as have all of us, you're very familiar with the process. You sit on the board of directors in your local board area. You attended, I believe, the SGM where the vote was ultimately held at the OREA Assembly. I find it somewhat political that these conversations are coming up now. You're very familiar with the process. You're very familiar with engagement. You're very familiar with governance. And to suggest that OREA can sort of pivot midstream based on a resolution that came forward from the voting assembly, of which your board is one, is a bit disingenuous. The reality is there were multiple opportunities for boards and associations to bring forward concerns. There were multiple opportunities for boards and associations to bring forward questions. And having sat through the presentation, we were there ready to answer questions or at least pause and get the information needed from outside consultants if required, depending on the granular nature of the questions. But I think to suggest now that having gone through an appropriate governance process, there's the ability to just flip a switch and effectively start again or put a pause isn't really reflective of the governance model of OREA. That being said, there are opportunities to address resolutions that come before the assembly. There are certainly opportunities to host a special general meeting, but to suggest that OREA can arbitrarily change path based on a resolution from their assembly, which is their voting delegates, is simply not correct.
So what would be the actual way for somebody to make effective their opinion of opposing this? They can call or request a special meeting?
So boards,
is there a process for that?
Boards and associations are the voting delegates of the assembly. And as such, boards and associations have the ability to request a special meeting. Boards and associations have the ability to bring forward discussion items, concerns, and that effectively has been the process in organized real estate since its inception.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go to Oriana Orr. Oriana, if you want to just let us know your full name and your board.
Hi there, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you perfectly now.
Hi, I'm with the Ottawa Real Estate Board. There was a question that was asked very straightforwardly and wasn't answered. Do we or do we not have to forfeit our license if we don't want these benefits? I myself personally will be negatively affected. Almost everybody that I've spoken to will be negatively affected. And those who aren't are opposed to this being mandatory. The fact that this is mandatory is extremely unfair. You are not our employer. We are self-employed. And to be part of this membership, we have dues and we are paying for those because we have access to MLS and we need that. But do we or do we not have to forfeit our license if we don't want these benefits? I don't care about Trillium and more information that you're offering. That question was completely whipped around.
Okay.
It was
So
very
we can
direct and
definitely
it wasn't
go
answered.
straight to your question.
Pardon me?
We can definitely go straight to your question.
Please,
Direct
can
it
Tania
direct
answer
it to
that,
the
please,
panel.
actually?
So look, you know, to be a member of a board, you have to be in good standing with OREA. That's always been, that hasn't changed. As long as you've been a realtor, you have to be in good standing with your member board in order to be in good standing with OREA, right? And that the dues are part of being in good standing. So if you're not going to be in good standing, you obviously will not be a good standing member of your member board. You will not be a member of that board. You're still a realtor. There are realtors who trade in Ontario and don't have access to MLS. You're still a realtor. You're just not a member of good standing with the Ontario Real Estate Association. Therefore, you're not a member of good standing in your local board.
So I think to answer the question directly, do I have to lose my license? The answer is no.
No, yeah.
You do not have to lose your license if you don't want to participate, but you would lose access to other board benefits such as the MLS. Yes?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's a very direct answer. And I will move on to Ms. Cheryl Carrier. Cheryl? If Cheryl cannot join us, I will move to Mr. Larry Leonard. Larry Leonard. Introduce yourself and your board. Okay, Larry no longer has a question. Pam Furness.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Pam. Welcome to the stage. What board are you with?
Thank you so much. My name is Pam Furness. I'm with the Oakville Milton District Real Estate Board.
Awesome. Welcome to have you. How can we help?
So my question has been touched on, but it's very specific to my situation.
Okay. If you feel comfortable in asking it, by all means.
Yeah. So I have a pre-existing condition where my medication is approximately $700 a month, will be increasing. My husband's insurance provider does cover this medication to 80% for me. I have spoken directly with Sun Life, directly with the people at his company who take care of the policy, and they have told me in no uncertain terms two things. A, should I be named on another policy, I will be dropped from this policy and will not be able to continue with coverage. And B, that because of the nature of his company and the nature of the policy, I am not allowed to share the policy documentation with anyone who is not my direct employer.
I think
So
that's a
when
very
we
particular, as
say,
you said, question.
right, when we say that, you know, there's these people that are working with them, I have emailed them. I have been in touch with someone by the name of Adam. I have spent hours trying to go around this tree and been very specific that it's going to end up costing me a small fortune, even to the point where I am happy to pay the $600 a year as long as I am not named.
Right. Who is qualified to answer this question? Because that's so particular to her
I think
husband's
Mike.
policy.
I think we would ask
Mike?
Mike to, it's very technical.
Yeah.
And it involves another policy. So maybe we
So-
could
so-
bring Mike on.
So if you want to hang tight, my friend, we are going to bring somebody who we
Thank
believe
you.
is qualified to answer this
Sure.
question specifically and ensure that you get your answer.
Hi, Pam. So actually, Pam, I do recognize your name. I know we've gone back and forth on email. I know we haven't had a discussion about this in person. I guess the challenge is we want to review and figure out what's available and any impact of this. I am not aware nor have ever seen a situation where obtaining coverage would in any way preclude you from continuing coverage through a spousal plan. If anything, this plan actually would reduce the cost to your spouse's coverage because the first percentage of claims would be going through ORWP as opposed to that plan. So I'm not suggesting by any means that couldn't be in the policy. It's not something that would be common in insurance. There are coordination of benefit rules that exist that all insurance companies follow. So I guess in response to that, if you have a copy of the benefits booklet, you'd be certainly able to share that with, I'm assuming, anyone you wanted to. And if there is specific wording, you don't have to share the entire policy, but if you'd like to share just the specific wording about this so we can look into it. But again, I don't think, the last thing we want to happen is for you to lose coverage somewhere else. I find it unusual. So obviously we just want to make sure that that is the case, and then we can look at alternatives. But as I say, traditionally with coordination of benefits, what would happen is your claims would start going to ORWP, but once you hit whatever maximum is in this plan that you elect, the claims would then go right back to your spouse's plan. So again, if you're able to provide additional information, even just the wording, that we can look into it a little bit further. Otherwise, it's really difficult for us to answer that question without something to say this is the case.
Does that answer your question? Is there some follow-up? Because that is a very specific question. She's off. Okay, I do have a 10-minute warning to everyone. I do have a few people still in queue. This is the 10-minute warning for the town hall. The next question, I guess before I go to Jasmine, again, for Mike to be able to help answer specific questions, please use the email address we did provide earlier to make sure that you get in touch with someone that can guide you through the process and get more help in supplementary services rather than the opposite. So please be in touch. Jasmine Lorvrich, if you want to come to the stage and just state your board.
Hi, sorry about that.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, how are you? Toronto Real Estate Board.
Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing this Q&A thing, but my question, as everybody else, is the mandatory thing. Could we not do a referendum with the members to find out how many people actually do want to opt into this? Because I don't have a problem paying my dues to the Ontario Real Estate Board, but dues are one thing, but now you're asking me to pay for insurance and coverage. That's not a due. That's something else. So I'm with everybody else. Like, why are you doing I don't want to be put into this. I already have insurance. I don't need any more insurance, and I'm over 70 years old. So where is this benefit to me?
Sure. So thank you for putting that question to context. Are we as OREA members able to call for a referendum? Is that an option to the membership?
You know, I don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I've never heard it being done. We've always worked through our member boards. That's OREA, that's the Ontario Real Estate Association. Everything we do through the member boards. They're the ones that deal directly with the membership of their area. So I would think, you know, we know the mechanism for member boards and what they can do. I would say that that is the avenue their membership would go, because we deal with the member boards directly in terms of the governance structure, as we've talked about already, you know,
Yes.
a number of times. That's our structure. That's how we operate.
I do generally believe the governance and the way decisions are made is what the majority of people opposing this. That's what it feels like to me after during this town hall as we go into conclusion. So I do believe the question for a referendum, I would say, I mean, we can always look into it and try to get back to our entire membership. But at the end of the day, I think governance and people getting more involved in their Ontario Real Estate Association politics would be the number one thing that I see, because it's after a decision is made that people got involved.
Right.
I never heard a peep, me personally, before the decision was made about mandatory health benefits. So I think if governance is such a big issue, people need to get more involved.
But likewise, the conversation also from the member related to, you know, insurance not being an element of dues. As a member of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board for more than 20 years, you've been paying for a mandatory life insurance component within your dues. And that's where some aren't aware. But again, 9 boards and associations in Ontario already had an element of mandatory insurance.
And TREB is one of them.
TREB is one, and TREB had a specifically life insurance policy, but others had a critical illness element or what have you. So there are many that are currently paying some form of insurance through their dues at the local board level already.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that question. And I hope we touched on your question to our colleague. This is the last question of the town hall. It is Devel Morrison. Devel Morrison, if you want to introduce yourself and your board, welcome to the town hall.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just trying to get my video going. Here we go.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm Devel Morrison. I am with the TREB, the Toronto Real Estate Board. As you've heard, there's lots of us who are not happy with this plan being mandatory. My question to you is, was there any research done with the CRA to find out if, because you are making this policy mandatory, will the CRA start counting realtors who have historically been independent contractors? Will the CRA start considering us employees and we'll lose our write-off benefits? So I'm hoping to hear that you guys actually did some extensive research about that.
Great question.
I can certainly speak to the advice that was sought as part of the program. So we certainly sought advice from not only legal professionals, but also those in the area of finance and accounting. We certainly recognize that realtors are self-employed. It was certainly a conversation that, or at least a discussion point that came up in terms of potential concern. OREA's board also brought in outside advisors. So beyond the committee work that was done, the board has advisors that were brought in to provide advice and guidance on exactly that. There's nothing that affects an independent contractor status or creates an employee relationship in the development of the Ontario REALTOR Wellness Plan.
Is there a place anywhere where we can find types of resources like for tax or like for that kind of advice? Is there something that touches on that in the resources?
The only thing I think that would be covered in the resource specifically is the independent contractor status and the non-employee relationship. that is something that's been addressed in OREA's communication.
Excellent. Devel, I hope that answers your question. And of course, this concludes the virtual town hall AMA, the Ask Me Anything. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Tania to bring this to a conclusion. And we are going to have one more big town hall that's live coming up next month.
Yeah,
So
we are.
Tania.
Thanks, Simeon. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for this virtual town hall. I hope we've answered your questions, addressed some of your concerns you have about the ORWP. We really appreciate the respectful discussion held today and are here committed to ensuring we keep members posted on any news and updates about ORWP in the months ahead. For more information or any further clarification you may need, please feel free to reach out to us or visit ORWP site at orea.com/ORWP. And before we end this call, I'd also like to thank our fellow panelists, Stacey, Evoy, and Kevin Crigger, and our massive thank you to our moderator, Simeon, for taking us on this journey and this discussion and keeping us on track. As mentioned earlier, we are additionally holding an in-person Ask Me Anything town hall on October the 11th in Mississauga. If you have further questions, keep an eye out for an email from us with further details on how to register and attend. Thank you again and have a great day.